Recording in progress.
Thank you, Maria. Welcome back to this afternoon session. And first of all, allow me to thank the government of Finland and the government of Zambia for collaborating to bring us together here and share experiences and knowledge for advancing our countries to push graduation of our countries from the LDC group. We need to reflect what we do, what we have done, where we can do better, and we're given a lot of insights this morning. My name is Dr. Agnes Chimbiri Molande, and I would like to welcome you to this session, exploring climate-smart agriculture practices to improve food security and to ensure sustainable agricultural development. This critical session will focus on climate-smart agricultural practices for LDCs. The objective of the session is innovative strategies and technologies to bolster in LDCs. Agriculture, as we have heard this morning, remains the backbone of many LDC economies, providing livelihoods for millions, with the sector accounting for up to 30% of GDP and employing over 60% of the labor force in some LDCs. We are experiencing rising temperatures, unpredictable weather patterns, and environmental degradation threatening food production and rural livelihoods. We need urgent action and innovative solutions that take into consideration the opportunities that we have in our nations, such as transboundary water masses, fertile land, natural resources, but we are disaster prone. So we need the esteemed panelists that we have here will provide more insights on how climate-smart agriculture in LDCs can enhance productivity and build long-term resilience in the face of multifaceted challenges. I wish to encourage you participants to engage actively, ask questions, and contribute to the conversation. As we have heard this morning, we are going to be sharing experiences. We need to reflect. So this afternoon, you have the chance to share your ideas. And we need to explore also solutions that not only ensure food security, but also empower communities, drive economic growth, and foster environmental sustainability, as well as increase productivity or productive capacity. Because it's very clear, LDC's productive capacity is still very low. And for that reason, we cannot access markets, we cannot produce much income And when we talk about domestic resource mobilization, it will be difficult to achieve that. With us today are experts and innovators that will explore transformative strategies and technologies to bolster food security, enhance agricultural sustainability, and strengthen resilience in LDCs. Now I'd like to introduce to you the first speaker, Mr. Maximo Torero, Chief Economist from FAO. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Excellencies. I will do a presentation, but you will have access to it. I will just show some of the slides, but I think the details could be useful. But my point in this presentation then we have a second component of risks that the sector is facing, which are linked to energy and inputs, and also to biofuels. Debt, which is a significant challenge for LDCs and LLDCs and seeds, and the exchange rate, the devaluation of the exchange rate, because most of these countries are food importers, and therefore an exchange rate devaluation adds to the potential increase in prices. And of course, the issue of lands and how land could be deteriorated because of different contamination elements. And finally, of course, the problem of emergencies and the need of food, and the migration, which has been so important, which is also substantially affected by climate. In this context, if we look at the numbers today, and briefly, we have 733 million people in chronic undernourishment, 2.3 billion people that don't have access to good food and to regular access to food, 2.8 billion people that don't have access to healthy diets, and 281.6 million people which are in the short term what we call acute food insecurity, which is IPC3 and above, which is what we touch when we talk about emergencies. But these under three drivers, which is conflicts, climate, and economic crisis, and also inequalities, which were exacerbated because of COVID-19. And specifically in the case of climate, there are 5 potential impacts from climate. Droughts and extreme temperatures, excess or lack of water, variability of the climate variables that will make more difficult for farmers to make decisions, evolution of pests and diseases that the President also raised this morning, and migration of human beings and migration of species. Now, why climate is so important is because today we have already surpassed 6 of the 9 planetary boundaries. What that means is that we will be moving into a system that will create biophysical dynamics which are not linear. And this is for sure what will happen no matter what we do in the next years, because it will take time to go backwards. So what we will see is that there will be an increase in frequency and intensity of events. And here is where being climate resilience and climate smart agriculture, if it is efficient, could be a way forward to be able to move what we are doing. Now, the countries we are looking at today and in this seminar are countries which have high levels of poverty, of course, and especially extreme poverty, and therefore this poses a lot of challenges to bring climate smart agriculture into it. If you are a farmer and you are very budget restricted, changing the way you produce and what you produce could create a problem to them because they don't have the budget to do it, and could also affect their yields. So we need to take all this in consideration and to try to understand the complexities that the poverty levels that they have, and here is some idea of the level of poverty. 44 countries are designated as LDCs, 32 in Africa, 8 in Asia, 1 in Caribbean, and 3 in Pacific. And 1 in 3 countries, as it was mentioned, 3 people in LDCs still live in extreme poverty, and the COVID-19 pandemic exacerbated this a little bit more. And agriculture is a crucial sector in these LDCs. And we can look also to LLDCs, we can look also to seeds, and the situation will be similar, especially in the case of seeds. Even the levels have been significant during the period of COVID-19, and now we are observing some recovery. So the point I'm trying to make is that we need to be very careful on how we push these technologies, and we need to assess how it will be beneficial to the farmers in the short term also, not only in the long term or in the medium term, which we all agree that we need to have sustainable technologies. But they need also to have the budget restrictions aware of them to be able to push any of these innovations and technologies in place. Now, access to healthy diets and access to nutrition is pretty important in these countries. The red line shows the level of prevalence of undernourishment in least developed countries. Relative also to the yellow one, which is the landlocked countries, or land-linked countries, as the President was mentioning this morning, but also relative to small island development states, which is the black line. So again, these are countries facing significant challenges, so we cannot risk more the situation they have, and we need to keep improving. Even if we look at the cost of an access to healthy diets, we will see that seeds is the blue line in top, are the ones that have the higher cost. But because of the options that you have locally, in the case of the LDCs, which is the red line, the costs are lower relative to seeds. But it still is increasing over time, and that's because of the challenges we have been facing in the last years. And again, if we look at the number of population that are unable to afford a healthy diet, in most cases we are seeing a stagnation or a little increase in the last years, which show the big challenge for them. And finally, one important topic to look at is the import dependence. And just looking at the LDCs, if you look at this graph in the right-hand side, the orange represents the imports, and the blue represents the exports. As you can see, in most of LDCs, they face a lot of impediments to be positive in terms of the balance of commercial balance of payments. Normally, they are native food import dependent. And they are importing mostly cereals, and they export some high-value commodities. If you look at the second graph bar, the fruits and vegetables, they have a positive result in terms of exports. But again, it's telling us how vulnerable they are to shocks, to droughts, as the President mentioned today, what happened in Zambia in terms of the drought period, and how these technologies could help them to be more resilient to this type of shocks. Now, let me briefly move. You will see in the PowerPoint the case of LLDCs and the case of seeds. But let me move to this concept of resilience. And I will spend a couple of minutes in this so that we can have clarity of what we mean by this. So I think first we need to understand that there could be a shock. And this could be a climatic shock, as I said, because the frequency will be there. Now, normally in the humanitarian approach, when there is the shock, you will have the red component, which is emergency response. It could be a T0, immediate, or it could be between 1 or 2 months. And that's what we call rapid response. But what we need to look forward is how we can prevent this, how we can increase the resilience before the shock happens. And that's what we call the anticipatory action. So I put there T-3 to -6, meaning 3 to 6 months in advance before the event happens. And that can be done with early warning systems that will help us to be preventive and prepare. For example, if El Niño hits, we can clean the rivers so that we minimize the potential problem of flooding. If there is a drought, we can prepare farmers so that we minimize the potential consequence of that. But then there is the green overall, which is the overall resilience. And that's the investment, the long-term investment that will help these countries to be more resilient. So when we talk about resilience, we are talking of minimizing risks, those vulnerabilities, but we're also talking of coping with risks when they happen. And that requires a significant long-term investment. Now, in the immediate short term, there are 2 ways that we need to accelerate this process. One is a facility that could help to bring private insurance and convert the insurance into anticipatory action. Today, all the private insurance systems are after the event happened. The goal is how we can move them to anticipatory action. This is the T-3 to -6. So how they can trigger the insurance before the event happens, because we know that the probability of an event happening is extremely high. And the second is how we can deploy customized solutions to the needs of each specific location. Normally, we go with generic solutions, but we need to work significantly to improve the customization and the localization of the solutions. And that's what I was referring when we talk about climate-smart agriculture. We need to be very careful to this to happen. Now, to be able to improve the capacity of absorption, and I stop there are 3 elements which are central, and I think the President today raised them. The first one is we need data, science, and evidence, and state-of-the-art analytical tools so that we can target the proper solutions to the problems and not just jump with labels of interventions. The second, we need to have operational solutions at the global, regional, and large scale for the right contextualization. What he referred to of land-linked countries and the markets I have around is central. And that is assuring, for example, interregional trade, assuring that we can have solutions at the regional level too, because that will give us the scale, the value of the assets that he was referring. That gives us the scale to be able to do things. But we also need governance and institutional arrangements that will help us to implement those things. When we talk of an agri-food systems, we need to have the governance structure to accelerate the process of the system. But science and evidence on whatever we do will be central in able to achieve and solve this problem. Thank you so much.
Mr. Maximo, and you have ably given us insights on the importance of linking, connecting macro, meso, and micro level issues, importance of digital technology, and even data as we try to minimize risks and identify solutions. And now we will take you to the virtual presentation. Mr. Niels Anen, Parliamentary State Secretary to the Federal Minister for Economic Cooperation and Development in Germany. This will be presented virtually. Can we have it, please? The virtual connection, are we able to connect? So we still need technology solutions for our conference as well.
Can you hear me?
So yes.
I think your colleagues need to activate the video because I cannot activate it here.
Yeah.
So it's still deactivated. I think the host at the Zoom conference need to activate my video.
Or can we go ahead without?
Okay, if it's not working with video, I can just talk to you and maybe if, here we are, okay. Thank you very much, Chair. Dear friends, Excellencies, it's a great honor for me to speak to you during this session at the LDC Future Forum and to contribute to a forum which offers a great possibility to explore policies, strategies, and practical examples to set LDCs on a sustainable development pathway. Tangible progress has been made in some LDCs in recent years. Of the 52 countries that have been granted LDC status since the introduction of the LDC category in 1971, 8 have so far graduated from the list. I think most recently Sao Tome and Principe in 2024, and we're looking forward to more graduations, including from partners of Germany's bilateral development cooperation, including countries like Bangladesh, Laos, and Nepal, but also upcoming Senegal. I think, dear friends, that's a great milestone, particularly in times of uncertainty. The support to LDCs are of particular concern to the federal government of Germany. LDCs play an important role in German development policy, and within the framework of the bilateral development cooperation, the German ministry BMZ works with 27 out of the currently 45 LDCs. In 2023, the federal government of Germany supported the LDC with around 9.8 billion euros. This makes Germany the world's second largest donor to LDCs in absolute numbers. We therefore contribute, and we also fully support the implementation of the Doha Program of Action. However, we are aware, and that has been mentioned from what I could hear, from the discussion, we are aware that climate change, economic instability, health crises, and geopolitical tensions are exacerbating existing vulnerabilities and impede sustainable development progress in LDCs. Enhancing resilience against systemic shocks seems more important than ever. And I want to mention, as the speaker before me talked about anticipatory action, that I couldn't agree more. I think one of the initiatives that we have tried to put forward, a global shield against climate risks, is precisely that, doing things in anticipation of events. So during the LDC 5 conference in Doha in March 2023, my colleague Secretary of State Jochen Flassbart led the discussion on the topic resilience against future shocks, linking crisis response to long-term transformation, to examine food crises triggered by climate change, conflicts, the aftermath of the coronavirus pandemic, and Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine, especially in least developed countries, a topic which very much links to today's session. Dear colleagues, dear friends, much has happened since 2023, which makes it more important than ever to build common strategies to enhance resilience of LDCs. In recent years, the global landscape has undergone significant challenges, particularly in the realm of international development, with shifts in policy and funding priorities affecting development and humanitarian programs worldwide. As we navigate these evolving dynamics, it is crucial to reaffirm our commitment to sustainable development and resilience building in LDCs. Let us work together to create a fairer, a more sustainable world where no one is left behind. As we transition into the presentations of this thematic session, it is essential to recognize the critical role that agriculture plays in the livelihoods of millions in LDCs. Climate-smart agriculture practices are not only vital for improving food security, but also for ensuring sustainable agricultural development. By adopting innovative agricultural techniques and leveraging technology, we can enhance productivity, build resilience against climate shocks, and promote environmental sustainability. So a lot more, dear Chair, could be said, but I really here from Berlin wish you an insightful discussion and practical recommendations that will emerge from the session. And I thank you very much for the attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Niels Annen, for your insights, for sharing with us what Germany has done in support of LDCs, and we thank you for that. And also for reminding us what the President this morning mentioned about anticipatory governance, about being proactive for us to be prepared for any eventualities in case of rains and disasters. Now we move on to the panelists that I have in front of you. We have Ms. Kadi, who is a researcher, and Ms. Elizabeth Abubakar. So over to you, Ms. Kadi. Thank you. Technology.
palm cultivation is very significant to Benin economy because it provides a major source of income and also employment for many rural communities. And however, oil palm is affected by diseases such as fusarium wilt and leaf spot, as you can see in figure 1 and 2. And those diseases affect productivity and the farmer livelihood. Also, the traditional prevention methods are very limited and don't cover all regions. But today, artificial intelligence have demonstrated a high accuracy on banana, cassava, and yam disease detections. So our objective are to explore the use of AI for early detection of oil palm disease in Benin, to develop also a CNN model, and finally to identify barriers to AI adoptions in Benin agricultural sector. AI model development, performance assessment, and farmer survey are the 3 steps of our methodology. According to the results, we realized for AI model, we realized that the DanceNet AI model show the best performance in terms of accuracy, precision, and recall than the ResNet and VGG16 model. And in the same time, when we compare to traditional method, we realize that the DanceNet AI model have significantly outperformed with around 80%. For the farmer survey results, we noticed that the 63% of farmers were open to adopting AI for disease detections, but they are facing some barriers such as internet access, lack of trust, training needed, and the cost of adoption of these solutions. So, in the term of discussions, we retain that the DanceNet AI model has demonstrated high accuracy in early disease detections, and this will contribute to economic resilience by improving yield and income stability. But there are faced challenges such as access of smartphone and the internet in rural areas, lack of digital literacy, and the high adoption cost. To fully harness AI potential, we recommend to invest in digital infrastructure, to implement capacity building program for digital literacy, and finally to provide financial support to make AI tools affordable for smallholder farmers. To conclude, AI has great potential for early disease detections, and it could be a game changer of oil palm cultivations in Benin and around the world. Moving forward, future research will improve the model with more data, and we can also develop an easy-to-use mobile app for farmers. Thank you very much for your kind attention, and we need everybody to join us and collaborate to move this forward. Government, civil society, and private company. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kadi, for sharing this very important information about AI as a game changer. And really, on the policy side, digitalization of systems is the key thing. And we need capacity building in digitalization. And we heard this morning, LDCs have a demographic dividend, and we really need to focus on these young people for a better future. And now give the floor to Ms. Elizabeth Abubakar, Insights Manager, Central Insights Unit, Global System for Mobile Communications Association. How you are going to look at how breakthrough technologies can address climate change and foster smart agriculture practices. The case of Timor-Leste. Over to you, Elizabeth.
Your Excellency, distinguished guests and participants, thank you very much for the opportunity to deliver this presentation. My name is Elizabeth Abubakar, and I work as an Insights Manager with the GSMA Mobile for Development. The GSMA represents over 1,000 mobile network operators across the world, and we work at the intersection of telecommunication, innovation, impact, and technology. At the foundation, our focus is on development research at the intersection of technology and sustainable development across low and middle income countries. I'll just wait for a few minutes for the slides to come up, if you don't mind. Thank you very much. So the research that we do is in collaboration with international donor and development partners such as GIZ, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. But for this particular research on Timor-Leste and LMICs, we're working with the UK FCDO. So this is essentially an extract from an ongoing research findings project that we are on, and is essentially the objective is essentially to look at technology solutions as it addresses climate adaptation challenges in Timor-Leste, drawing insights from other use cases across low and middle income countries. Timor-Leste is a small island country. We believe our findings from this case country is of particular interest because it is a low income country and is also a small island developing state which share similar challenges. So we're hearing similar climate change challenges, but you'll also be hearing more about the technology solutions that could possibly build our post-resilience. It's a small island country of 1.4 million population. Economy-wise, yes, over 80% is dependent on its oil and gas reserves. However, it's largely an agrarian country in the sense that over 66% of the household are engaged in over 66% of the household are engaged in agrarian activity. It also contributes to, it covers 38% of employment and contributes to over 16% of its GDP. So this makes it quite an important sector for the country. We've all heard from various speakers and presenters, including Your Excellency, the President of Zambia, on how climate change has really adversely affected low-income countries. Timor-Leste is no exception. Some of the impacts include incessant flooding and drought, which has contributed to over 35% reduction in arable land within a 10-year period. We also see how droughts lead to water scarcity and poor water quality. And this is against the backdrop of the fact that smallholder farmers are largely dependent on rain-fed, largely practice rain-fed agriculture. On the Global Hunger Index, fortunately, still low, and 22% of the population are said to be facing acute food insecurity, and that, of course, has its health implications with regards to high rates of malnutrition amongst children. Increasing temperatures and shifting weather conditions also serve as a also create conditions for the spread of pests and diseases. And this loss of agricultural products reduces income for farmers, and because of limited access to finance, business capital, they're unable to build back better. So these impacts reflect the need to maximize land productivity, the need to address pests, to monitor pests and diseases, and also financing to build back better. Now, beyond these challenges, we explored certain use cases that provide or project certain key technology solutions that have successfully addressed some of these critical challenges. One of which is Temple TL, which is an online weather forecasting service, which provides weather data information to the government of Timor-Leste, and that is being used to provide more customized solutions for smallholder farmers. This addresses the problem of farmers not being able to understand the weather patterns, the rapidly changing weather patterns, not being able to build resilience, not being able to understand cropping cycles and the conditions are next to that. So we call this a data-driven digital climate advisory. And the second one is more peculiar to water management. I believe the next session after now would be on water management, but this is just a use case that's a global use case that spotlights how precision agriculture could help to drive a better irrigation system. So this particular technology is called the chameleon soil sensor. It's called chameleon because it's water color coded. So it changes the spots depending on the water moisture, used to provide real-time assessment on the soil moisture, assessing the different depths and enabling precise agriculture. And it's being used globally across Tuvalu, Indonesia. But there's a particular example on Malawi where the government sort of collaborated with the Virtual Irrigation Academy in terms of training the farmers on irrigation agriculture. This was under a irrigation system master plan policy in 2015. And they saw some improvement within 2 years. The maize crop yields improved by between 90 to 130%, and then the beans crops yield also improved as well, between 150 to 170%. Yes, so this is another example on digital advisory for pest and disease monitoring. It's called Plantix. So Plantix is an AI-powered crop diagnostics for detecting and managing crop pests and diseases. And it has the ability to identify over 800 disease symptoms across 60 crop types. This is largely being used in India as a country of adoption. And it is such that farmers, so how it works is you take a picture of the crop and then the diagnostics just runs real time and then provides some advice and also some resources on what to do or how to go about that. The last example is on digital financial services. Like I said, farmers are in dire need of, when there has been an extreme weather event, agricultural products are lost, and there is need for financial support to build back better. The UNDCF has more or less like a regional intervention within the Pacific Islands. It's called PICAP, the Parametric Insurance Program. And what this serves to do is a combination, an integration between weather information being leveraged to assess who is entitled to what insurance schemes. So farmers are being onboarded online, and whenever there is a weather disaster or an imminent weather event, those who are affected would become eligible to certain insurance payout to be able to anticipate, absorb, and then build back better. This is being currently implemented in Fiji, Tonga, Samoa, and Solomon Islands. Yes, for any of these digital solutions to actually become reality, there is need for a very structured and enabling environment in order to promote climate smart agro practices for Timor-Leste. But I believe these recommendations are also global across low-income countries. There's need for strategic partnership between the public and private sector. And like I mentioned at GSMA, we work with governments. We also work with, on Innovation Fund with startups on a Startups Accelerator and Incubation program, including a recently I recently launched AI Emerging Tech Program, where we have an AI fund working across Africa and Asia in driving emerging technologies on climate change and other development issues. Also policy and regulation. We find that some countries don't have data protection laws, they don't have consumer protection laws, and these are very key and instrumental to drive startup innovation and impact. There's the financing, which have been discussed in previous, by the previous panel, and then there's capacity building, the need to train these farmers on on the skills that they need to build back better. Very, very important is digital infrastructure. Just assessing that there is a low, there are very, very strong digital connectivity constraints in the country, and that really impacts the extent to which any of the digital solution could be implemented or even scaled. Thank you very much for listening. This is a QR code that gives you access to all of the insightful work that we've done in the last decades, including this one, this particular research, which will be launched in a few months. I am here throughout the program, so I'm happy to connect with you and discuss more about the work that we do at GSMA Mobile for Development. Thank you very much once again to the organizers.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. And you can see how we have really shifted to digital presentations, digital sharing of information using the code. So she has really brought up critical issues to remember if we are to close the digital divide. And closing this digital divide between the North and the South and between in our countries, we need all these partnerships, the review of policies and legal frameworks, financing, critical digital financing, and access to finances by rural populations, key capacity building, and even critical infrastructure. And really, one other thing that I picked very important for everybody to remember is that solutions that we identify should cover all the agriculture value chains so that we don't leave out any of the value chains. And sharing of climate information, critical as well for our people to be ready for any disasters. I thank you all, the presenters, and now it's our time to share a little bit of what we think from morning to now vis-a-vis climate smart agricultural practices. So I open the floor for any interventions, questions, or even sharing your own reflections. 1 minute each. Yes, I recognize over there. You can mention your name, your institution, and then your question.
Thank you very much. My name is Mutinta Masowe, the founder of an initiative called MCover Solution. I'm an LDC youth delegate. I'm an educator too. So with the session that has just ended, a lot of good points have come up. Mostly I'm interested with artificial intelligence. Since now we are talking about artificial intelligence incorporating agriculture, I'm a bit happy and worried at the same time, because as we are trying so much to sweep the house and make it clean, there is an industry out there which is really making it difficult for the house to be clean. What I mean is that we have artificial intelligence. If it goes in the wrong hands, it can be a time bomb. One of the industries I'm talking about is, ladies and gentlemen, is as in tobacco industry. Tobacco industry is rapidly killing our young people. It is there to boost our economy, but what's the point of having a not healthy nation with its young people, Zambia having 60% of its population made up of young people. So they are also making e-cigarettes, which is one of the technologies that is coming up. And it is depleting Zambia's economy too. So with the panelists that talked about AI and that talked about good health and well-being and making resilience so that our women and young people are able to become productive? What advice could you give to nations that haven't come up with better policies and better laws so that our young people can be productive and healthy? Thank you.
Thank you very much for that question. The voice of the young people. Any other question? Over. Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you. So yeah, I'm Alvaro Diaz from the Spanish government, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And I would like to, more than ask a question, I would like to take the floor for a minute and just to insist on the importance that we give to agroecology and the financing of agroecology. And in this sense, we, as Spain, we support broader efforts to enhance access to finance for sustainable agriculture. And we believe this involves scaling long-term investments and supporting participatory research and increasing the role of local actors. It also requires continued coordination between governments, multilateral partners, and civil society to align resources with the real needs of rural communities. And we believe that incremental changes are no longer enough. We believe a substantial transformation is crucial. And as this critical juncture, we believe there's a need of a clear message in the next Financing for Development Conference, the UN Development Conference, the fourth one, which is going to take place in Seville in the beginning of July. And this idea, in this sense, we believe that the future of agriculture in these developed countries must be built in agroecology, and it must be financed at scale. And this is not only about producing food differently, it's about shaping a different future in which agricultural systems nourish both people and planet, where rural communities can thrive and advance our shared commitments to sustainable development. And in this sense, I would like to just to cite a few examples of what we're doing through our Spanish Agency for International Development Cooperation. We're working, first of all, in countries such as Mali, Niger, Mozambique, Senegal, as well as in Mauritania, where we contribute in irrigation expansion, nutrition-sensitive agriculture, and the development of small-scale agroecological farms. Also at regional level, we are playing an active role in supporting the agricultural policy of ECOWAS, where we have contributed more than 30 million euros to initiatives such as the Regional Food Security Reserves, and especially the Integrated School Feeding Models Program, which is being implemented by the Regional Agency for Agriculture and Food of ECOWAS, and which currently benefits over 23,000 students in 15 countries through locally sourced and community-led solutions. It's also important to note also the PRISMA project, which is a regional research effort that we co-financing with Spain, Belgium, Luxembourg, and the European Union. And it's where we support agro-pastoral systems in the Sahel, focusing on pasture management, improved animal feed, and risk mitigation instruments for 2.5 million euros. Of course, these are just examples, but we believe that what's at stake is very important, and also a special effort should be made in the following months after the changes that we're seeing worldwide, especially in the agricultural field, and especially in the road to the Seville Financing Conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that comment. Mali.
Madame la Présidente, pour la parole. Permettez-moi de féliciter et remercier au nom des plus hautes autorités de mon pays, le Mali, le gouvernement et le peuple frère de la Zambie pour leur grande hospitalité légendaire à travers l'accueil chaleureux et toutes les commodités réservées à la délégation malienne depuis son arrivée dans cette belle ville de Lusaka. Je voudrais également les remercier pour la grande réception culturelle et dînatoire offerte à l'ensemble des délégations ici présentes. Cela dit, au regard de toutes les préoccupations soulevées ce matin, d'abord par son Excellence, Monsieur le Président de la Zambie, et également de tous les panélistes qui se sont succédés, je voudrais, Madame la Présidente, qu'on mette l'accent sur le renforcement des partenariats et également de la synergie entre les différents mécanismes de financement, notamment le Fonds vert pour le climat, le Fonds pour l'environnement mondial, le Fonds d'adaptation, le Fonds d'investissement et climatique, j'en passe, dans le cadre de la mobilisation des ressources financières et pour faire face aux différentes préoccupations légitimes soulevées par l'ensemble des panélistes et également par son Excellence, Monsieur le Président de la Zambie, qui a quand même soulevé des préoccupations légitimes importantes pour l'Afrique. Également, par rapport à toutes ces préoccupations qui ont été soulevées, il serait quand même judicieux également de renforcer la synergie entre les secrétariats des différentes conventions avec nos pays dans le cadre de la coopération régionale et même internationale. Alors, par rapport toujours également aux préoccupations soulevées relatives à l'utilisation des nouvelles technologies de l'information, les inondations, les sécheresses, je pense, Madame la Présidente, il serait également judicieux de mettre l'accent sur la promotion, notamment l'appropriation de ce qu'on appelle les régimes d'assurance agricole. Monsieur le Président l'a dit ce matin, face à la sécheresse vécue ici, les paysans ont perdu des semences. L'État était obligé d'intervenir pour les appuyer, les accompagner, les soutenir. Dans cet esprit, je pense que l'accent pourrait être mis sur le développement des assurances agricoles à travers la FAO qui travaille beaucoup sur ces aspects au niveau de nos États, et également aussi d'encourager les États à allouer des ressources au secteur agricole dans le cadre de la promotion des semences améliorées, des semences adaptées qui, même avec un minimum de pluie, peuvent donner le maximum de rendement. On doit aussi travailler, comme certains panélistes l'ont dit, dans le cadre du développement d'infrastructures résilientes. Nous, au Mali, avec les inondations vécues, des infrastructures ont été emportées par les eaux. Dans ce cadre, il serait mieux à l'avenir, à travers des partenariats dynamiques, féconds, de développer des infrastructures résilientes à même de faire face aux effets néfastes des changements climatiques. Aussi, à entendre les différents panélistes de ce matin et de cet après-midi, je pense que le secteur privé aussi a un rôle à jouer en termes d'innovation et en termes de mobilisation des ressources. Au niveau de mon pays, le Mali, nous avons une stratégie d'engagement du secteur privé dans le cadre de la lutte contre les changements climatiques et également de la mobilisation des ressources financières. Alors, pour terminer, je pense que l'accent a été mis aussi par les panélistes sur l'utilisation des technologies. Je pense que c'est de voir si c'est des technologies qui sont adaptées avec le taux d'analphabétisme qui est élevé, avec aussi les délestages, les coupures. Est-ce que c'est des technologies que nos paysans peuvent utiliser avec ce taux d'analphabétisme qui est très élevé, également avec les coupures intempestives auxquelles nous assistons dans certains de nos pays. Je vous remercie.
Thank you, representative of Mali. And I think I don't see any other. Oh, yes, that's Angola, is it? Thank you.
Boa tarde a todos. Nádia Cristóvão, faço parte da delegação de Angola. Gostaria de apresentar aqui duas questões. A primeira seria para o período da manhã.
Yeah, the microphone, please. The interpreter cannot hear you.
Alô? It's okay now?
No. IT support, please. A minute.
Alô?
No?
Alô?
No. Can you speak again?
Consigo ouvir agora?
Yeah.
Ok, thank you. Como ia dizendo, no período da manhã, tivemos... desculpa, antes gostaria de agradecer a oportunidade de cá estar e parabenizar os preletores. No período da manhã tivemos a apresentação do Fundo Nórdico de Financiamento, a quem colocaríamos a primeira questão. Gostaríamos de saber quais são os critérios que os países LDCs devem apresentar para ter acesso a esse fundo. Na sua apresentação mencionou que tem trabalhado com países já tem trabalhado com países africanos e asiáticos. Angola teria interesse em saber qual é o processo para aquisição ou para se candidatar a esse fundo. A segunda pergunta seria para a representante do Benin, que falou sobre o uso da inteligência artificial para a agricultura inteligente. Angola está a implementar a sua estratégia nacional para as alterações climáticas e lançou agora o seu Plano Nacional de Adaptação. A quando disso, está a ser implementado projetos de agricultura sustentável e achamos muito interessante a questão do uso da inteligência artificial nesse processo. Então, gostaríamos de saber quais foram os principais desafios para o uso da inteligência artificial nesse processo de agricultura inteligente e se começou-se com microprojetos ou já com projetos abrangentes. E como é que foi a questão da sensibilização dos próprios agricultores ou das próprias comunidades? Sabemos que a maior dificuldade nos projetos de agricultura sustentável é a sensibilização da comunidade. Então, gostaríamos de saber da experiência de Benin e como foi adicionar, então, a inteligência artificial em projetos do gênero. Obrigada.
Thank you very much. And we close the interventions there so that you can hear from the panelists in terms of their responses to your questions. May I start with Mr. Maximo?
Well, thank you so much for the questions. Let me group them. First, on artificial intelligence, there was a question about regulation and how we can avoid this being misused. That's a global problem right now. Artificial intelligence is moving very fast, and still we cannot find ways to regulate. But one advice that I will provide, especially for Africa, will be to do it regional. it will be very difficult for a country alone to regulate this type of technology, which is moving at such a velocity, while regionally, like what the European Union is trying to do, could be a good way to minimize any potential capture. But it's really important to provide some rules of the game that will allow to use it in the proper way. Now, there are two ways in which artificial intelligence is moving. One is language models, what you have in ChatGPT, what we have seen. And the other one is quantitative models, which are more for forecasts, for modeling things that will happen. Those very different ways of using artificial intelligence. And I think we need to optimize and be with the horse. The horse is moving very fast, but we need to find ways to bring the best of it so that we can optimize, because at the end of the line, as my colleagues were mentioning, for smallholder farmers, precision farming is what they need, but it needs to be provided as a public good. In difference to a large farmer that they can buy the services and so on, small farmers need this as a public good, and that's where we can equate and label the field with them and make them inclusive to smallholders. So that's the way we need to look at it. Now, in terms of financing and what was mentioned in terms of financing, I think it's really important to look at the needs. In the case of Africa, we have, of course, CARAP, and we have the Post-Malabo Declaration. They are telling us what they need to do to be able to move forward. And we should respond on the financing and financing for development to those needs and find innovations in financing mechanisms that will assure that. But again, we need to be very careful that our recommendations and what we finance is science-based and based on really solutions to the problems they are facing. We cannot force a small farmer to adopt a technology that will reduce their yields, and nobody will compensate for that, no matter if it's sustainable or not. These are very budget-restricted farmers. So we need to find solutions. If there needs to be a subsidy attached to it, temporal subsidy, we need to look at it. But we cannot force them to adopt things that will reduce their yields and in the short time will put them even in a worse situation. I understand the sustainability, and that's, of course, our priority. But we need to figure out ways in which we can do it that is affordable to them. In terms of the insurance that was mentioned by I think, Mali, I think we need to also here look carefully. What we are trying to do in FAO is a catastrophic insurance mechanism, 12 risks, 6 of them climatic, and trying to find ways that we can use the private sector to attract money to create anticipatory action. That's what we are trying to do. But then, of course, there is the crop insurance, there is the farming insurance, and my colleague referred to index-based insurance, which are parametric insurance. But in most of the world, those are subsidized, heavily subsidized.
Recording stopped.
And we need to find ways to find mechanisms where we can minimize those costs and those subsidies, and we can use them to link them to financing. The way to move forward in insurance is linked directly to financing. If a loan is given to a farmer, it's because he has an index insurance or an insurance in place that will minimize the risk for financing. So the financial institutions needs to be supportive of that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Maximo. Adji.
Ok, merci beaucoup. Je vais quand même faire honneur à mon pays et en parlant le français pour répondre à la question. Déjà, au niveau des grands défis rencontrés dans l'intégration de l'intelligence artificielle dans l'agriculture, je pense qu'en Afrique, on est encore vraiment en arrière et nous sommes confrontés à de nombreux défis, et que ça soit déjà au niveau de l'accès des agriculteurs au smartphone ou bien à l'Internet dans les milieux ruraux. Je voudrais aussi repréciser que la présentation faite tout à l'heure, c'est beaucoup plus focus sur la recherche scientifique.
Recording in progress.
Et dans le même temps, à côté, nous avons aussi de mini-projets entrepreneuriaux que nous menons, mais pas au Bénin. Et en ce qui concerne les palmiers dattiers les palmiers à huile au Bénin, il faut déjà notifier que déjà je suis agronome et dans notre équipe de chercheurs, nous sommes des agronomes et nous cultivons déjà des palmiers à huile. Donc, cela nous facilite avec d'autres paysans agriculteurs qui sont dans les milieux ruraux et on a la facilité à interagir avec eux, même s'ils sont vraiment réticents à certaines solutions que nous pouvons apporter. Et également, ce que je voudrais aussi ajouter, c'est que nous sommes toujours à l'étape idéation. Et je pense que si nous arrivons quand même à évoluer, on pourrait voir comment rendre accessible une solution qui va faciliter ces agriculteurs qui sont surtout dans les milieux ruraux. Donc, le défi, c'est vraiment énorme, généralement pour nous qui sommes en Afrique. Et je pense qu'en travaillant de commun accord avec ces agriculteurs qui représentent vraiment un maillon fort de la sécurité alimentaire dans nos pays, nous pouvons vraiment arriver à proposer des solutions efficaces et durables. Merci.
Thank you very much. And over to you, Elizabeth.
Yeah, just to address the question from the respondent from Zambia on AI and inclusivity. Digital inclusion is really at the center of AI deployment. And in Africa, there's like a very staggering statistics around so the African languages that are online, the online content has less than 1% in African languages, and that to a very large extent bridges a lot of gap. What that means is if you have like an LLM models and all, there's only an extent to which people in grassroots communities across Africa can understand or be able to use and interact with that. So there's need for, like you said, data sets, collaborating in collecting data sets that are in languages that are well understood by the local communities. There's also need for customized solution. So I gave an example around pests and diseases. Their pests and diseases depends on the geographical location of these arable lands, right? So for instance, in Timor-Leste, there's the fall armyworm, which affects maize crop yields. In another country, it could be something else. So there's need to identify what the specific solutions are, because that's one strategy via which you can then engage with the local communities. There's also one trend that we found in weather forecasting model, and this has been applied in Vanuatu, which is a small island country, where there is already like a pre-existing traditional method of understanding weather and understanding weather predictions. And so what the meteorologists and scientists have done is to have that be part of like the indicator, the set of indicators that they have in terms of predicting weather, such that when we have local champions and extension officers and workers go to these communities to communicate, they communicate from the angle of, oh, we understand there's a pre-existing traditional practice, and this is also, in addition, there's also like this model or this way to also detect. So that way you're able to train and include them, starting from where they are and then building up from there. We are also, at GSMA, we are champions of startup collaboration and innovation. A lot of countries around the LDCs and LMICs have youthful, vibrant population, young people thriving and scaling, even with the low and limited resources that they have. And we believe that strengthening them with finances, with technical assistance, to a very large extent, puts countries at the forefront of AI development. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are over time. Just to respond to the question, the concern over there about laws and policies that for countries that do not have, certainly there are other countries that have moved forward. As Mr. Maximo said, we cannot catch up. The AI is moving very fast, but we need to really run fast as well. So we can share various laws and policies. Probably we could request that the OHRLLS could look at who has these policies. Malawi, we have a Private Data Protection Act. We can learn from the Malawi, and we are developing a cybersecurity policy. So there are some countries that have already moved forward, and I think we just need to share, and then we can move faster. The other solution is the regional integration, and for your information, the UN is creating an AI governance mechanism. I think that will fast track what we are trying to do and support the member states accordingly. Critical issue also that was raised was financing for development language. I think we need language from here. I hope that the rapporteurs will try to pick and listen to some of these colleagues from the UN, from New York, please listen to this, whatever is coming out here, and pick out the language that we can include in the financing for development outcome document. It's really very critical. And then COVID delinked farmers, we should notice how important digitalization is and that we need to give our farmers digital capacity building, and also so that they can access markets. That time during COVID, they could not. And finally, the role of artificial intelligence in early detection of diseases and many other breakthrough technologies, critical, very important. And also the scaling up of digital climate advisory services are critical, early warning, very important. And also the increase of private sector investment is very important. How do we do that in our current geopolitical and geoeconomic situation? How do we increase private investor participation or investment to ensure that we have climate smart agriculture? I thank you all for your participation. Thank you for the presenters. Thank you for panelists. I thank you all and have a good afternoon.
And thank you so much to the panelists. Excellent, very rich discussion and very actionable, practical solutions for climate smart agriculture and much more. So this will conclude this session. We will have a coffee break, but should be back 5 minutes before 4 o'clock. So 3:55, please be back. If you're not done with your coffee, you can bring the coffee inside, but we hope to start in time so that we can finish on time as well. Thank you.
C'est quoi? C'est un Kissien, son mari ou... Ah, je n'ai pas.
Mais ils n'ont pas laissé les gens intervenir. Il y a une seule personne qui a intervenu, mon cousin. Ma femme, et tout ce que vous avez, en fait, il est avec une fille, une banane.
Ah, c'est ça.
you.